He was saying, well, what about Nidus worms? And I was like, yeah, I completely forgot. In this game, Nidus worms are your key as Zerg to defeating this sort of immobile um, or this immobile anything really against any race. So something that I wanted to experiment around is that I had a lot of success with opening a Mutalisk Zergling against this. I could hold the early pushes inefficiently, but I could hold them and he'd be back into this passive mode where he had to just sit and chill. I think that's the one vulnerability I would identify in this style of play, is that you do have long lengths of passivity that are kind of forced upon you. That whenever he starts to move out, I just start Nidus worming everywhere. And even though I have worse efficiency in terms of army, I just wear him down. Kind of similar to how a Terran army in the original Brood War can use tanks and vultures and science vessels to be very efficient against a Protoss, but basically the Protoss just recalls everywhere and attacks every front and tries to win. So I'd be delighted to take some questions. Let's take this first. Let's take this first question. Let us divine here. What are some good questions that we have? And I just poured coffee on my face. I'm not good at multitasking. I'm not good at reading and drinking at the same time. I think it's very difficult. So here we go. So Vandalem says, "Hello, Day. Hello, Vandalem. I feel that after the little one turned back with his initial Hellions and his Banshees weren't out yet, Demaga had a small window to move with his Lings, and Banelings would have made even more of an impact." So the one thing that I want to highlight on that one is that given the wall-off structure that the little one has created at his front gate, he can re-wall off that other area with the starport. So if he had any inkling that Banelings were coming up, he could make another wall off, or he can just happily re-wall off that a little more. The big issue I see is that the little one was so in Demaga's face, it would have been hard for Demaga to throw down a Baneling nest. And also think of it this way, if you do throw down a Baneling nest, you don't really have any future tech that's going to be able to deal with those Banshees. So if the little one can figure out a way to survive a Ling Baneling bust and has the Banshees up, Demaga is forced to make queens and be passive. There's not a good way otherwise to deal with that. So Kaznode says, Day9, you mention often how you don't have to worry about roaches with this build. What if the opponent does get a whole bunch of roaches? Would this work nearly as well if roaches were one food? Go Banshees? So what I would say is that I went mass roaches against Little One and he raped me. It was so not close. So the big issue is that it's hard to get the roaches up and a-going. So this is the thing. The games that I played, I was opening Mutalisk, and when I went roaches, it was after I had 5 bases, and I was just like, I went from like 90 food to maxed on just roaches. Siege tanks do tons of damage to roaches, and the reason the roaches worked out reasonably well against a meching style play is just because you had so many of them. So you would get maxed, you would hang for 2 minutes, wait till you had, 30 larvae at all your hatches, and you were at like 3k, 2k. Then you would attack, rally to the front of your army. As your army would be, about to whittle down, there would be another 30 roaches that would swing in that would let you win. But because of the recent food change, I get maxed on roaches and attack, and he just decimates it, and I'm kind of like, ooh. So the thing that I'm thinking of is that late game, the tanks are just such good killers of roaches. And then if you have enough Marines and Thors and Hellions, it's just the cleanup crew. But the big thing to note is that if roaches are made at the start of the game, the range 3 of roaches makes them very bad as units to bust defenses. That's why you see players like Idra brilliantly just sitting and defending and making roaches and waiting for the opponent to come out in the open. So if the little one saw roaches early on, which is not something that I've done, but if he saw them early on, what does he do? He just gets tanks, turtles a little more, makes maybe an extra bunker, and then he actually starts getting Marauders. And then he moves out with that force. That's actually what he did to me when I was getting into the mid-game. He just makes the unit-producing structure that he needs. In this game, in the last game against Demaga, we saw him make 3 barracks more and begin pumping out Marines to deal with these muta numbers. He could have easily made Tech Lava add-ons if his opponent was getting roaches. It's just such a strong, efficient army. Lol Grandma says, hey Day9, wouldn't a good build, maybe like this build, that focuses on a lot, or this build focuses on a lot on flexibility. Isn't looking for the counter a little bit short-sighted? Yes, I actually want to note that what Grandma's saying is absolutely correct. Like you've probably heard me say, I don't believe in this counter notion that seems to be around the forums. Like, oh, he's doing A, just whip up B, done. I'm just trying to clarify what I was saying. There is just so much difficulty I have with any unit mix. I'm having a little trouble thinking of the right way to even go about thinking of a style of play to deal with this. And the one thing I've neglected quite a bit is the idea of banelings. So that's something that I'm going to incorporate a little bit more, and I think that they'll be quite effective. And obviously I want to have some more link ups to it, but that's just something I wanted to throw out there. But for any of you who are trying to devise strategies, try experimenting with banelings quite a bit. I think that they will be a fundamental component to your strategy. So let us see here. What are some more questions? I love questions. So here's a question by Harlequin Knight that I think is also reasonable. That this build does seem susceptible to just a raw, fast baneling bust and speedling rush. I feel like the straight up rush, just like 13 pool, 12 gas, just straight going for speed, and then the banelings trying to get in there. I think, first of all, that would be scouted, and that's just so risky, because if your opponent does anything different, like let's say you're playing against me, I don't do this style. If you open up with a baneling bust, I will win, because my build has, I had to attune it to be able to defend against that. So I think that that's a little bit of an issue with the baneling bust. I'd have to see about some delayed baneling bust, like perhaps you throw down an expansion, and then you do a baneling bust that was alluded to earlier in the questions. I think that that might have some sort of success. Just a lot of early aggression might be a solution. But again, I just think banelings are going to have some sort of good awesomeness to them. So let us see here. So Dancing Zephyr says, Day 9, is this diverse tech build viable for other races? Or is this just a Terran-only build style? So I actually think that of all the races, Zerg is the one that where you kind of have to say, I'm going to make a lot of this unit and this unit. I think, though, for Protoss, I have not experimented with a one gate, one robo, one starport style play. That sounds a little bit... it sounds kooky, but again, I mean, like the Void Rays, they deal so much damage to ground. Phoenixes are pretty decent anti-air. They have the lift ability. You can get an Immortal. I mean, the issue is that with Terran, they can make so many different kinds of units out of a barracks, out of a factory, out of a starport, just by doing a little bit of swapping with the tech labs. So, I mean, that's something to note if you want to do that style of play, but... that is something to think about with the fact that, again, air units just deal so much damage to ground. I'm very curious if there are ways to abuse this. So let us continue. Here's another great question by Aquaman LOL. Day 9, how would you suggest that you counter this type of Terran build while playing Protoss? I often find myself being pushed into a Void Ray build, but I'm afraid that Thors might hard counter them well. Thors are not good against Void Rays anymore. I can tell you this because I was having some decent success against Void Rays, going for fast Thor because I'm buddies with Jinro, and we just love, locking arms, skipping, and building Thors. But with the change from 8+4 to light damage on their air to 6+6 to light damage to air, they're just so much weaker against Void Rays. And if the Protoss player just plays a little bit passively upon seeing Thors and then gets the Flux Veins, which is the speed upgrade for the Void Rays, they hurt you. So the way I would actually deal with this type of Terran build is actually to go Void Rays. I actually played a player twice. He was a 2600 Terran. Yes, I'm not going to say his name because it's not my MO to just be like, haha, take that, person I played on the ladder. But this Terran player did go for the style of play where he was opening up with Marines and tanks and then getting, a starport and getting Ravens and all sorts of good defense. I opened up with a pretty normal 2 gateway play. I got my warp gates fast, and then I proceeded to get a robotics facility just to get the observer up. I saw a bunker at his ramp, and so I was like, yeah, I know he's doing some sort of silly fast tech thing, so I need to get the observer to deal with Banshees if he is getting that. And then I expanded, got 2 Stargates, started pumping out Void Rays, got some Sentries out, a small-ish ground force, but I just started pouring out a ton of Void Rays, and I upgraded the +1 attack at my Cybernetics core. I started getting the Flux Veins, and I just started expanding. And it's funny because he got so many tanks, a lot of Marines. He even started getting Ghosts for the EMP. He had the Ravens. He had the theoretically beautiful army. And when I moved into attack, all my ground units melted, like so fast. And then I had 9 Void Rays, and thanks to the speed upgrade, it just blew through everything, no problem. So that is a great way to abuse that. The Void Rays need some momentum. You need the ability to buy time to get them up. But because this build is a little bit more passive in nature, it ends up working out quite beautifully. So that would be my suggestion, is to experiment not with rushing Void Rays, but with an after-the-fact Void Ray. So let us see. Let us divine. So I will just take one more question because it is currently 8 p.m. and this cast has been going on for quite a time. Someone's ass is day 9 getting fat.